All right. I'd like to welcome everybody here to the special county council meeting. We'll start with the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, guys, if everybody can look at the, saw the agenda. Not only we don't have special meetings, but we had some people, they're in from out of town, and they, so they didn't have to travel in twice. We went ahead and met here tonight, and it's for a special occasion. Dave Wagner's here with his team, and probably about a year ago, maybe a little bit more, he reached out to then Commissioner Tom Brown. And Tom and I met with Dave at that point, and they're going to build. They are interested in building a coal-fired, not coal-fired, gas-fired generation plant here, and he wants to give us a presentation. I will just give the floor to Dave, and Dave, you can introduce who you got with you.
All right.
And it's been really good working with him so far. And welcome to Spencer County, Dave.
Well, thank you very much. Found out that it's a pretty good place to be. Hand one of these out to all you guys. So like Aaron said, my name's Dave Wagner. I think I met with all of you at least once. More than one time. There you go. Yeah, so I very, very much appreciate you guys coming together for us today. I think that you all have a good idea of why we're here, but I want to make it official. I do want to run through some of the high-level details of the project really quick. I'm going to run through this really, really fast. If you have any questions, interrupt me, or we can ask them at the end. But I'm Dave Wagner. I'm with Tenaska. We are one of the largest private energy companies in the United States. We own and operate, I think, over 7 gigawatts or around 7 gigawatts of power plants, the majority of those being natural gas. We have a large power services company where we handle generation for other companies. We are also the largest by volume trader of natural gas in the United States. We handle about 12 to 15% of the natural gas that flows daily. So we've been around since 1987. We actually got our start in natural gas. We've built a number of these things, and the folks that built those things are still with us to this day. So let me run through this here really quickly then. I just went through slide 1, so that makes it easy. We have done work in Indiana before. We've developed a little bit over 10 power projects up in central and northern Indiana before, so this isn't our first foray into this. Aside from this project here, we actually have another natural gas power plant that we're developing a few hours away from here as well. So we're very familiar with Indiana, and we plan on being here for a while. So what we're looking at doing here is, as Aaron mentioned, it's a combined cycle natural gas power plant. About 700 megawatts is what it's going to end up being. Natural gas is what's called baseload and dispatchable power. You can call on it quickly. It doesn't depend on the sun or the wind to generate electricity. And there is a need for additional baseload dispatchable generation, not only nationwide, but in this region as well. It is the cleanest way to generate anything from fossil fuels that there is out there. This is a quick map of what we're proposing to do. For those of you following, well, it looks like everybody's following along with me. All right, okay, good. So the project would be in the pink rectangle up there. The facility down at the bottom right, that is the current AEP Rockport coal facility. That is where we will tie into the transmission lines. That yellow line that you see in the map there, that is going to be a transmission line where we will generate the power, run the power through that transmission line, plug it into the substation. There are also natural gas pipelines, major pipelines on either side within about 2.5 to 3 miles of the project site. So we're close to a source of natural gas, which is very advantageous. Also with the project will require water, and there is a pretty good abundance of water that we would be able to source. We've done a feasibility study already, and we're continuing to do studies, but I think right now our leading candidate is likely the Ohio, I never can get the name right, the Ohio River Aquifer Outshed. I don't remember what it's called. I'm not an environmental engineer, but essentially it's subsurface water. So don't print that part in the paper. But anyway, so that's essentially what we'll be doing. There are a handful of different locations from where we may source the water. One of them might require an intake and a discharge pipeline, water pipeline that we would run. If we were to do that, it would likely just run north-south along the state highway in that right of way for the most part. This is a mock-up of what the proposed site will likely look like. This is what's called a one-on-one. So it's a gas turbine, and then you take some of the heat that's left over from that and you run it through a steam turbine generator. It's called a heat recovery steam generator, or HRSG is what we call it. So this rendering is actually from the actual parcel. So the tree line that you see there, that's the tree line on the southern end of the land where we build it. So that's a pretty accurate representation. This I have actually already covered for the most part. I talked about why we decided to site it here. All those things that I mentioned, natural gas, water, a need, like an actual need from the industry, those things don't all cross over like a Venn diagram in a lot of places, and they do here. Spencer County, we figured, would be a good place to do this, a receptive community, and the folks that we've spoken with thus far have proven our assumptions to be correct. And then also the one thing that I didn't mention though is that the US power grid is divided into various regions. They're called RTOs or ISOs, depending on who you talk to. And the RSO, or the RTO rather, that we're in here that we'll be connecting to is called PJM. And PJM has expressed a need for baseload generation, natural gas generation here in the next few years, especially in this region. So we already know that there is looking at being a shortfall when you look at things like load growth, like projected load growth, plus other generation that may be falling out. For example, the AEP coal plants, I know the future, that's up in the air, but you know that very likely could get retired. Other coal in PJM could get retired. So there's a need for it. From an air quality perspective, essentially our modeling that we've done thus far shows us that we'll continue to meet the federal national ambient air quality standards. We will go through a rigorous permitting process that is required both at the federal and the state level. So we will be submitting our permit for that probably like 6 weeks maybe 8 weeks. Depends on how fast I can get my guys kicked off. From a water usage perspective, we're looking at using about 6 million gallons a day. This is essentially for non-contact cooling. And for perspective, that might sound like a lot, but that's 1/100th of 1% of the flow rate of the average Ohio River flow rate per day. So it's really literally a drop in the bucket, I guess you could call it. And that pun just magically worked itself out well. So on the discharge side, we'll be discharging about 1 million gallons of water per day. We're still evaluating where that might be. Going back to the river is an option. Sometimes you might find local industries that might want to use the water, municipalities that might want the water. So we're still going through figuring out where the best place to do that is going to be. There are also very stringent federal and state permits and rules and regulations that you have to go forth before you can do something like that. So on the timeline, we're looking at probably about another 2 years of development. The earliest construction start date is realistically going to be probably mid 2028. I would say probably Q3 of 2028 is realistic. It's about a 3-year build, sometimes can be a little bit longer than that. I think the earliest that we would be operating would be mid-2020, or mid-2032 rather, excuse me. So likely anytime, second half of 2032 is likely when it would be. We would like to accelerate that if possible, but it's just a matter of when you can get the equipment in and get everything timed and get everything built. It's, as you can imagine, it's quite a process. This is just a list of a couple of the major permits and approvals that we're going to need to go through. On the local side, we just submitted our petition for rezone for the parcel, as well as we submitted an application for height variance. So we'll be going through that here over the next several weeks, looking to get that taken care of. Trying to think if there's anything else. I mentioned that we'll start our air work here coming up here in the very near future, as well as on the NPDES and the IDM water permits as well. So those have the air and the water have a timeline of about a year-ish to get, and so we still have a lot of room on the back end to do those. That's kind of why we haven't filed them yet. We're just kind of waiting to get some of our information a little bit more detailed. So one thing that I want to talk to you guys about today is we have had conversations with some of you about a proposed tax abatement structure. The first thing I want to say is that our initial ask for today was going to be to actually have you guys consider the structure that we had talked about. After speaking with some of our tax attorneys at the end of last week, we were looking at the SB1 forms, and they want us to go through a revision on some of the numbers. So unfortunately, I'm going to ask you to do that at the next meeting, but we still thought that, especially since you guys are coming together for us, that it would be a good idea to walk through the project and the project details and give you an idea of what's coming up. So again, I apologize for that delay, but we just want to make sure that the numbers that we're going to put in front of you guys are accurate. As you can probably imagine, it's a very popular time to be a natural gas developer, so prices on everything are constantly fluctuating. So we're about to get some updated inputs on that front, and so they wanted to wait. But the structure that with some of you that I've spoken with is a 10-year abatement structure. It's 100% for the first year, decreasing 10% each year over a 10-year period. As we've come to understand it, that is the structure that you guys have put forth for large industrial projects like this that have come through the area. We are comfortable with that. That is what we are wanting to move forward with as well. In terms of economic benefits, the current capital investments that we're looking at doing right now, we have over 1 billion. I think we're currently around 1.3 billion is probably where we're landing. We'll be looking at about 720 full-time construction employees. Excuse me one second. Talking too much. Looking at over it's about 720 full-time employees during the year construction period. Our engineering, procurement, and construction company will source that locally when they can. Those that are not sourced locally will need hotels to stay in, apartments to rent, restaurants to eat in, that kind of thing. So it's a good economic stimulus to an area during that construction time. Once the project is operational, we're looking at about 20 full-time positions with an annual salary total of about $1.9 million based on our estimates today. We will be looking in terms of property taxes for the county over a 25-year life that we're modeling. We're estimating right now about $36 million in net property taxes would come into the county. What is that? 15 million of that, I think, would come in over the first 10 years from what we've modeled thus far. Then we have we've modeled 4.3 million in sales and use taxes. So it'd be a nice stimulus there. In addition to the abatement, we certainly understand that a project like this needs to be a good symbiotic relationship for a community. So we have had very high-level discussions with various county leaders regarding a potential economic development agreement. So that's a route that we're more than happy to go down as well. Essentially, what was communicated to us is that The agreement that's been in place with AEP on the coal facility now for all these years has worked very, very well for the county. So the discussions that we've had thus far, I think mirroring that structure to a large degree is probably what's going to work for both counties. Like I said, we haven't gone too far into the weeds on that one yet, but both parties seem pretty comfortable with that structure. So in addition to having the discussion about the tax abatement with you folks, that's something that we are planning on. We'd like to get that figured out here as quickly as we can with the commissioners as well. So this just basically, this last page here, we have a project website that went live today. We also have an email where folks from the community can email with questions. That is an email that is checked several times a day, so it's one where people will get a response. People can reach out directly to me if they want to. Happy to do that. We will continue to, in addition to the abatement program that we're looking at doing here with you guys, you know, we'll continue to fill all of you in. I am always available. Pick up the phone and call me. I'll talk to any of you pretty much any time. I think I talked to Aaron on Saturday the other day, didn't I?
Yeah, I think so.
We don't have normal business hours, so. But no, we're very happy to be here. Again, apologies for not having the formal ask, but like I said, I explained why that is, and I think it makes sense for both parties, but we did think it was a good idea to get in front of you guys and kind of formalize the discussion so you guys know what's coming on. So I just threw a whole lot of information at you in not a lot of time, so I'm more than happy to slow down now and take any questions that you have. Just so you know too, as we go through this process, like as we go for our rezone and things like that, we'll be bringing in Tenaska experts, we'll be bringing in our air quality expert and our water engineers and our electrical engineers. So we'll have people here that will be able to answer the more technical detailed questions that might come up from yourselves or from the community. But for today, like I said, we wanted this to just be kind of high level and informal. So happy to chat with any of you.
All right, guys, questions for Dave?
Yeah. What other sites are we looking at besides Spencer County that you would have as an alternative if it doesn't work out here?
We would not, at this point, the one that we have a site going in Vermilion County as well, and it's not an either or for us. It's, we're looking at them as separate projects. So let me put it to this way, David, when we get to this point, when we stand up in front of a body such as yourselves and have this conversation formally, we have been doing enough due diligence that we have a high level of confidence that there's a project to be had here. We don't really like to get in front of folks and sort of let the cat out of the bag, quote unquote, and then a week later say, oh, well, just kidding, we're leaving, So we're pretty comfortable that there's a project to be done here, so. But yeah, no, I mean, it's not the kind of thing where we would, I don't think we would move it to, if Spencer County said no, I don't think we'd go to the next county next door. Again, it really is, it's the pipelines and just, I mentioned that Venn diagram of everything kind of, overlapping here in Spencer County, that makes sense for us.
The $1.3 billion that you're looking to invest in, that's major, that's big. Over like the 25-year study that we call that, what kind of return on investment are you guys looking at?
In all honesty, that's not something that we normally share. I guess the one thing I can say is margins are a lot tighter than people think in this industry. So, that's probably the best that I could answer that question right now. Just because since we are a private company, they keep that stuff kind of tight-lipped. So, I mean, I could probably get a more formal answer for you, but that's all I could probably say right now.
That's fair.
But like I said, they're not as crazy as people might think they are.
I mean, that's a substantial investment. I mean,
It's not small. It's
Yeah.
and a lot of that, and to be honest with you, there's a lot of that comes from equipment deposits that come very early on.
Mm-hmm.
So you put up a lot of money real early in these things. So
The project, you said $36 million in net property taxes over the life of the project. Was that including or discluding the abatement part of that?
I think that was including, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And then a couple other things too. So have you guys
I'm sure like any type of project like this, everything's good with IURC, or is this something that you guys are still pending on, or what's the
Yeah, we'll go through the IURC process here still. That's about a 9 to 12 month process, and we haven't gone through that yet, just because we're still finalizing what we call configuration, which is like our equipment and the technical details of what we're going to use and how we're going to use it. Because when you go to IURC with something like this, they're going to want to see some of the engineering designs and things like that that we just don't have yet. I would anticipate that I'll probably, I'll put it this way, I have it scheduled to reach out to IURC around midsummer. I'll get it done sooner if I can, but I need to make sure that we're comfortable with well, similarly to you guys, we need to make sure that what we put in front of them is accurate, because you don't want to have to go back and start changing things.
So a couple other things that I want to make sure, so I'm hearing
Yeah.
you say, well, our IURC is pending, to finalize on what you guys, or how you guys are gonna obtain the 6 million gallons of water a day. You still don't know 100% sure how you're getting that. There's state, federal, and state permits still have not been conducted or anything
That's
yet
correct.
too.
Yeah. The way that works from a chronological perspective is you want to get all your studies done first. Obviously, you need to make sure that you're not going to have an adverse impact if you're going to draw water like that. So, like I said, we did a feasibility study a little over a year ago to kind of take a look at what's going on in the groundwater, the surface water, all the subsurface water, and got an idea of A, is there enough to do it here without adversely affecting the local landowners, which there is, and then B, where is the best place to maybe identify to do that. So we've done that, and now we're going through, I think and again, I'm not an environmental engineer, so I don't want to screw this up, but I think we're going through a water quality study is what we just kicked off, where they kind of take a look at what the water is going to be like, because obviously if you're going to run it through machinery or use it for cooling, it needs to be of a certain caliber. So we need to see what it's going to look like, what it would take to get it to that caliber when we go through there. Once we get that, then we're going to have a much better idea where we're going to source it from. Once we get that identified, then we'll start going through the state permits, the federal permits. It doesn't do us a whole lot of good to say, well, we're going to do this, and they say, where are you going to put it? Well, we don't know yet. So.
Frank, I got a question, and if you don't know this or can't tell me, I understand. Like, how much water do you know how much water AEP uses a day with those cooling towers? And they have wells, and they're using a tremendous amount of water now that we won't be using, correct?
Yep, they get the water out of the river, they don't use wells.
Okay.
Yeah.
6 million gallons a day is not a lot of water.
Yeah, it sounds
For
like it is,
industry.
but for an industry, it's
City.
really not.
It's about like running, it's probably really about running 4 center pivots. They use about 1,500 gallons a
And
day.
that's, quite frankly, similar to center pivots, that's peak usage. I mean, that's not all day, every day, all year. That number's gonna fluctuate, so.
Yeah.
Would this be a union construction or non-union?
I cannot answer that question simply because I'm not sure. The way that usually works is, so what happens is there are a lot of what's called EPC, engineering, procurement, construction companies. They're companies that generally specifically build power plants. We have the conversations with the EPCs. We have an RFP, generally we'll whittle it down to 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever the case may be. And then they'll usually put forward a plan to us that we'll take a look at. So we're still in the process, we're having conversations with the EPCs. We've whittled it down quite a bit, but we haven't selected anybody yet.
Okay. And is this a long-term plan for you guys to hold on to it, or is this something like, are you guys mostly in the construction and sell it to like AEP down the line? Or
First thing I will say is anything is possible. However, our normal business model is to maintain ownership, at least to some degree. Usually it's majority ownership, sometimes it might not be, but yeah, we like to stay in. We're generally not a develop and flip company.
And decommissioning, is this like a 25-year and it's done, or do you guys anticipate after 25 years? I mean, it's hard to say what natural gas and stuff.
It's hard to say because you don't really know what the state of the power industry is going to be like, right? Like, I mean, who knows? Somebody might have figured out nuclear fusion and we're all living on the moon in 25 years. But I'd say realistically, what we'll do is we take a look at the condition of all the equipment, figure out what it would take, what can be fixed up, what might need to be new, look at the cost of that versus moving forward. Is it going to be cost prohibitive to do that? So that's kind of what goes into it. In terms of decommissioning though, I think you do a decommissioning bond with the county, that generally gets held in escrow every couple of years. You'll have a third party auditor essentially come in and, or appraiser come in and figure out what that cost is gonna be, and then that fund gets, added to or reduced appropriately, and then that ensures to the county and the local citizens that there's always gonna be enough money to decommission it properly if that should ever come.
And last one I have, 10-year, why the 10-year abatement would you guys, like what's the incentive for that versus something else?
The incentive for us is that's what you guys said you liked, and we looked at it and we said, yeah, that looks pretty good. So that's about as easy an answer as I can give you on that one.
You mentioned the air and water, I don't know how close any neighbors are, but what about noise, light? Is there any increased traffic? Do you have any byproduct waste?
Well, there'd obviously be increased traffic during construction.
Right.
That's unavoidable, but I mean, you've got 20 full-time employees there. Not all of them are gonna be there at the same time, so you're not gonna see a huge influx. The
I
fuel
mean, you
source,
don't have
yeah.
byproducts or anything that needs to go in and out.
It's water.
Trucks. Okay.
Yeah, it's gonna be water and that's all gonna be discharged.
Pipeline.
Yeah, that's gonna be
Yeah.
discharged. Now, that said, there may be a diesel fuel oil backup that we might have for times if the natural gas supply for whatever reason is not available.
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing that as an operator you put in and you don't really ever want to have to use, because it's a whole lot more expensive and it's a lot more of a pain to deal with. So that might be that might be the kind of thing where that would need to be that might need to get trucked in, but like I said, we would use that sparingly and only when we have to. So
Now, is there flares, or do you have pipelines coming up that have flares to show that?
I don't, I'd have to ask the engineers, but I've toured our sites and I don't remember seeing flares at them. Do you?
No.
Yeah. So I'm gonna give you a 90% no flares on that.
You're just gonna have lighting out there, you need that for safety if not.
Yeah, and it's the kind of thing too where nowadays you use the lighting that goes down. It's not like the old days where you put the halogen that lights up like a baseball stadium.
Yeah.
So, and then you mentioned sound. We've already conducted one sound analysis based off of the configuration we think we're going to go with, because you need to look and make sure that you're going to be only at a certain decibel level at the property lines. We take a look at the occupied structures that are around the area. You look at, and those studies also consider different seasons, right? Sound travels more in the winter than it does in the summer. So what's it going to look like, when there's no leaves on the trees, and, in December, what's it going to look like for the neighbors? And so, you want to make sure that you're not going to be a burden to your neighbors from a noise perspective. And then you mentioned, in terms of discharge, I may have misspoke a little bit, but maybe not. If I didn't understand there are air emissions. I mentioned the air permit, and the reason that we looked at the height variance is because we put a tower there to any air emissions that are going to come out are going to be well above.
Right.
Yeah, and they're not going to affect anybody. And
What are the pollutants you'd be emitting? Is
I
it
don't know off the top of my head.
particulate, or
What's
I
that?
didn't know if it was particulate or if it's NOx or.
I don't know.
Okay.
I can find out. I'll ask well, it's important to know. Our air quality guy, he'll be in town actually in a couple of weeks. So, but I can find out. And I don't want to speak to anything officially in front of you guys if I'm wrong, because that can be, like I said, I'm not an engineer.
Have you already worked out an agreement with AEP to use their distribution line?
We have an agreement in place we've gone back and forth on. We were just about to sign it a couple of months ago, and they're still figuring out what they're going to do on their side. So we haven't signed it yet. Technically, according to the interconnection guidelines, we technically don't have to have it signed until the end of the year, but we essentially have an agreement that's ready to go. Both parties were ready to execute it, and then they said, hey, can we take a step back while we figure out what our layout's going to look like with what we're doing. So that's where we are. And we have a great relationship with AEP. Tenaska itself does a lot with AEP outside of just Spencer County. So, it's not like we were calling up a bunch of strangers and asking them to do this. We know them pretty well.
What's the total acreage of the project? I'm gonna probably find
The
it.
parcel that we have, the main parcel that we have optioned is 80. Off the top of my head, I want to say, don't quote me on this one, but I'm in the range. I want to say that with the parking lot and the structures, I think we're around 30, give or take. That's a ballpark. And then the rest of that is to keep it, for sound dissipation. Yeah, so you want to keep that buffer away from neighbors so you don't bother them.
186 on that.
All right. Any other questions? Comments? Well, I'd just like to welcome you and thank you for trying to get this done here in Spencer County. When you get your SB1 together, bring it down or send it over and we'll take a look at it.
But we plan on having it here real soon. I want to see you guys, like to see you guys again at your next meeting and make that request formal.
Okay.
So we're gonna consider an abatement before all the permits and everything are done, though? The IRUC and everything?
They have to know their taxes before you can go to the IRC and get your permitting.
I feel a little uneasy on that, but that's just my opinion.
Well, it wouldn't matter, because if they don't get the permits, it doesn't happen anyway.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
All right. Any other questions? Concerns?
I like the name, Rock Hill.
Rock Hill.
Pretty observant out there. Oh, that cliff right there.
All right. Well, Dave, thank you for coming. Thank you
very
for
much.
the
I appreciate your
opportunity
time.
here. And we'll go to work on this. Thanks for presenting this and let me know, Tom. Thank you.
Oh, I did not one thing I did.
Yeah, introduce your people.
Just wanted to say, we've got Jim Cooster here, Maggie Bruno, they're with Tenaska, and they work in our community relations department. And then we've got Tom Brown back there. A lot of you probably know him. He's a local resident that was dumb enough to let us bring him on as a local resident, so.
Yeah. Tom, thank you. Tom, I guess Dave, when it all started, Dave called Tom and Tom answered his phone, so good job, Tom. Way to be an all-star back in the day.
Dave said nobody picks up an out-of-state call on the first ring.
Yeah.
And that's the first thing I said, well, how can we help?
Yeah.
And he goes, I got a real person.
Yeah, I just couldn't believe what a trusting individual he was. I could have been a Nigerian prince for all he knows.
All right, guys, if nobody else has anything, I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll say.
Steve seconds. Everybody in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we're adjourned.
Thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate it.
Turn on TV.